Welcome to Mystara for a look at one of the most exciting locations in the known world, the Duchy of Mositius. Once a barren rock, only known for its reefs and volcanic activities, it has been converted into a haven for the rich and possibly the best-known vacation spot in the empire. It's famous for the magical mists that billow out from the volcano at irregular intervals. These clouds instill a single emotion in the nearby resorts and are the primary reason people visit the island in great numbers. This is all the work of the Duchess, who saw an opportunity in what used to be a superstition. I'm Mr. Welch, and I picked a bad day to stop sniffing fumes. The island of Mositius is located due east of the county of Duchess, surrounded by the protectorate of Caryton to the north, Bordeaux to the east, and Actius and Scalaris to the south. Plus, a pair of nasty reefs were found a few miles away from either side of the island's northern half. Approaching the island is best done from the south, with ships coming down the coast of Duchess until they turn and approach Mositius. The island is approximately 75 miles long and 25 miles across at the widest point. The island's interior is mainly used for wine and agricultural production, with beautiful sandy beaches lining almost the entirety of Mositius. The island wasn't always known as the paradise it is today. For the longest it lay uninhabited because of Mount Mositius, an ever-smoking volcano located centrally on the island. Nobody wanted to be next-door neighbors to a mountain that could wipe them out without notice, so people stayed away. It didn't help that the approach to the island was limited by the reefs, making Mositius even less desirable for habitation. But one woman changed all that. Triella Tien Tang, an adventurer of mixed Thaiatian and Ochalian heritage, gathered the courage to investigate the volcano and found something quite unexpected. Instead of an active volcano, the mists came from a small brass artifact that she named the Censer of the Mists. This lone magic item generated all the vapors pouring down the peak. Most of the time, the mist was benign, having no effect on the people breathing it. But several times a month, the mist coming down from the censer would change colors, and that's when things got interesting. During these events, the mists affected people's emotions, just for a few hours. Anyone breathing the magical vapors would share the same emotion. Usually this emotion was harmless, if not beneficial. Emotions like giddiness, optimism, love, or laziness were the most common, but occasionally the emotions manifested as rage, uncontrollable lust, or fear that could affect the entire island. Tien Tang developed a method to contain the mists, only releasing them when she wanted to. Then she went to work making Mositius the entertainment capital of Thaiatis. Triella Tien Tang is an inspirational story of self-made success in Thaiatis, especially in her hometown of West Portage. She started her adventuring career relatively late, becoming a wizard at the age of 28 when a traveling magician discovered her potential. She left the Isle of Dawn and moved to Thaiatis City to expand on her studies a few years later. There she met and befriended the future Emperor Thinkal during her adventures, and when he led the charge during the Spike invasion, she was right there at his side. She retired from adventuring after that to begin her research into arcane matters. During this retirement, she found the secret of Mositius. She petitioned Thinkal to become the Baroness of the island, a request her old friend agreed to with some provisions. She had a solid plan to turn the barren island into a profitable addition to the empire. When she implemented her designs, it generated so much interest and, more importantly, income, she was quickly promoted to Countess, and then even faster to Duchess. Even Tien Tang was amazed how successful she was, as Mositius went from an unpopulated island into a status symbol. In the decades since the Duchess started converting the island into a tourism mecca, it has become almost unrecognizable from the simple town she envisioned. The island has only a single large town, the port of Argivan, at the foot of the volcano. Here the streets are lined with all manners of entertainment. Visitors can go from playhouse to music hall to tavern to brothel to casino without ever stepping on the road outside. By ducal law, every business in Mositius has to remain open every hour of the day, giving the island a reputation of constant movement. Not every form of entertainment provided is visceral or physical. Many art galleries are found on the island, some of which are the most exclusive in the empire. Marinas dot the coastline across the island, and regattas and simple boat tours are held almost daily. An entrepreneurial group of Aquarindi elves even started an undersea sightseeing tour, using magic to take visitors on excursions to the wonders below the waves. While ships tend to avoid the island's northern section because of the reefs, a peculiar form of entertainment can be found there, brought over from the Pearl Islands. People have taken to standing on wooden planks and riding the waves found off the northern beaches. There's surfing. You don't need to disguise the language, TSR. You've given us surfing Romans. Every bit of entertainment on the island is planned well in advance, part of Tien Tang's grand design for the island. Competing businesses must be a certain distance apart to avoid visitors having to choose between two adjacent venues. Many of the more illustrious hotels or halls have a waiting list often a year in advance. The island targets young nobles and aims for repeat business. For those that can afford it, Mositius is the #1 destination for weddings, reunions, business meetings, bachelor parties, retirement parties, and the best place for successful adventurers to lessen the load of their latest dungeon crawl. The festivities are ridiculously expensive. Few can afford to stay more than a few days. Even simple inns or hostels cost several times that of their mainland equivalents. But a vacation in Mositius is something that most Thaiatians dream of. For the truly wealthy, regular trips here are a status symbol. One of the reasons for the island's constant flow of tourism is the training the staff receives in catering to the guests' whims. Mositius doesn't turn away anyone with the coin to visit. A ship full of privateers returning from a successful foray is as welcome as the family reunion of a powerful senator, but they will be provided with different diversions. The guards employed in Argivan are trained to politely direct rowdier patrons to facilities where they can carouse without disturbing other guests. The typical staff member can placate an arrogant Ochelian noble one minute and turn around to suggest to a group of half-drunk legionnaires back from a campaign where the most affordable brothel is. A night in Argivan is one to remember because of the massive assortment of Thaiatian citizens looking for a good time. It's even more impressive that the guards and hired help keep them all happy and diverted away from each other. The vineyards are in the center of the island, producing some of the finest grapes in the known world. Guests rarely venture here unless they want a tour of the vineyards or just a wine tasting. There's not much in the form of entertainment outside some specialized interests like polo grounds or horse racing. The wines are highly sought after on the mainland, but only a small number of bottles are exported. Most of the wines cultivated here are for use by visitors only. This also means that most of Mositius' food must be imported, but with the vast wealth generated, that's rarely a problem. Shipments from Thaiatis City, Minrathad, and even more exotic ports arrive daily, making the selection of food and drink here almost unrivaled. If you have the coin, Mositius can provide it for you. Because of this service, it also has the largest population of hin per capita in Thaiatis. Many cooks are from the 5 shires, and the best chefs have become quite famous and wealthy. Duchess Tien Tang lives high at the peak of Mount Mositius, where she plans the future of her duchy. Her time is spent looking at scheduled events, VIP visits, and other significant details. She doles out the day-to-day operations of the island to her assistants. These individuals are highly competent, hand-picked, and well-paid. Visitors rarely see the Duchess except for major events like holidays when she makes a well-publicized appearance. She has a flair for the dramatic and shares the Thaiatian love for the exotic. Many of her staff and guards are chosen specifically because of their appearance in addition to their talent. Her ducal guard is represented by individuals from all across the empire and even other nations. The volcano is heavily guarded by her elite troops and backed up by 3 dragons hired to provide air support if necessary and otherwise impress the guests. The most notable aspect of the islands is the mists, of course. Tien Tang keeps the censer locked away in an airtight room to prevent the mists from covering parts of the island. When the mists change colors, she sends in several slaves to see what the effects are. If the effect is positive, she opens up the dome and lets the mists flow down to the island. If it's a negative one, she keeps the dome shut and hopes the slaves aren't too badly affected. The mists occur randomly, never more than once a week, but at least once a year. She can't schedule when they happen or what the effect will be, but this randomness adds to the island's mystique. The effects of the mists only last 6 hours, and the release has to be authorized by Tien Tang, so she is alerted as soon as the mists change colors. She will make the call if they are potentially hazardous, like when the mists cause an increased sense of adventure. This resulted in multiple accidental deaths from risky actions, but the casino's income greatly increased as well. The mists either blanket the entire island or just the city of Argivan, depending on the source you're reading from. Regardless of the source of the lore, the effect of the mist covers Mositius entirely. Despite the wealth that can be found on the island, violent crime is almost unheard of. Part of this is because of the strict weapon laws. Only daggers are allowed on the island, and any form of armor is prohibited. While quite polite and understanding, the guards are still highly trained and more than capable of defending themselves. The first thing a guard does when confronting a belligerent is to call for backup, and there's always more guards just out of sight ready to respond. But even then, the guards will be more than happy to direct an angry drunk to an establishment that will cater to their desire, as many of the bars have fighting pits for people to work out their energies on other willing patrons. The biggest threat is the non-violent criminals, as conmen and pickpockets are a constant threat. A word of warning, the volcano is strictly off-limits to visitors without an invitation. The elite guards are even better trained and far less understanding than the regular guards. Plus, they can call in dragons as a backup. The only other prominent location on the island is Cunis Tower, on the island's northern tip. It appears to be made from a single gigantic piece of ivory, hollowed out, and turned into a beacon to warn ships away from the rocks. It can be toured for a price, though its actual origin is a mystery and seems to change with every retailing by the lighthouse keeper. While the tower is famous for its beauty, it's also fully functional and discreetly guarded by a contingent of troops. The last thing the Duchess needs is a shipwreck to mar the reputation of her island. That's the story of Mositius. If you haven't thought of a dozen adventure hooks by now, I've failed as a narrator. Any story involving players at a fancy gala, casino, or art gallery can be placed here. If the party has too much money, send them to Argivan, where the cheap rooms are 100 gold pieces a night. There they can drink the finest wines, dance the night away, head out for a brothel crawl, or try to rob 3 casinos in one go. If you have a heist adventure that needs a setting, Mositius is more than ready to be that place. Next week we're staying in Thyatis, but heading to a place not quite as glamorous as Mositius, the Hinterlands, where the Thaisian legions are fighting its allied tribes in a constant struggle. But until then, tonight we're going to party like it's $9.99.